When thinking of predatory animals such as foxes, most would probably imagine a vicious carnivore with razor-sharp teeth, but what if I told you that a certain fox species munches on Christmas beetles and berries? In its natural habitat, the European red fox has been known to be an expert hunter that feasts mostly on small animals such as rabbits and birds, but a study suggests that their diet may not always be so simple. In Queensland, Australia, where the European red fox is invasive, it has had to adapt to an environment that is constantly changing due to local urbanization and the extinctions of many native species. Because of this, foxes may no longer have access to what they would have eaten in their traditional dietary niches. Curious as to what they would find, a group of scientists studied the diet of European red foxes over the course of 4 years. This study found that in their invaded habitat, the diet of European red foxes directly reflects what can be found in their environment. Without abundant access to prey, foxes act more akin to scavenging foragers that will munch on everything from plants to insects such as Christmas beetles, and even decaying bird and fish remains. The expansiveness of their dietary niche reflects both the fox's opportunistic foraging habits as well as the constantly changing environment in which they live.
the earliest writers on politics, and I'm thinking of Plato and Aristotle here, felt free to draw insights from all areas of human knowledge. Unlike modern academic writers who tend to put things into smaller and smaller compartments, or focus more closely on one area of inquiry. For example, Plato would examine a whole political system and the philosophy that underlies it, whereas modern writers on politics might concentrate on one particular institution in that system, the House of Lords in England, or on voting patterns within a country. With this focus, the bigger questions that the ancients dealt with, what is the best form of government, or what is justice, tend to get left behind. Many writers on politics these days are university-based and so have to have specialized interests, and while they may make new and interesting discoveries in their special field, it is at the loss of a broader perspective, not to mention the loss of a general audience or readership. In the 19th century, there were still writers who used the same freedom of inquiry as the ancients, and are all the more readable and relevant because of it.
The assignment that I'm going to set for the holiday period is one that we've given students for a number of years. It's quite practical and will allow you to get out and about. It's no good being shut up in your rooms all the time. It does have a written element, too. Basically, it's a data gathering exercise, and there are two choices with regard to how you collect the data. We'll go through those in a moment. I'm also going to give you a link to an internet site that is, well, it's critical that you review this before you do anything, as it provides a lot of guidance on data presentation, both in terms of how you plot it, its diagrammatic form, and also its description, which has to be clear.
This week we're going to be continuing our discussion of women in society. Last week we looked at a number of issues relating to women and education. If you remember, we discussed women both at school and at university. Today we're going to be considering the roles that women play in the workplace. Again, we'll start by taking a historical perspective, and inevitably you'll find that many of the same events that impacted on women in education also had a major influence on their working lives. In the second half of the lecture, I'll concentrate on the situation in Europe today, and I'll invite you to suggest how you think things are likely to develop over the next decade. Okay, so let's get started.
I'd like you to think for a moment about your hands and all the things you can do with them. You can use them to write or to drive. You can thread a needle, play the drums, build a wall, and so on and so forth. They can be careful and precise. Think of someone doing eye surgery, for example. But they can also generate huge forces. And here you might think of the sportsperson throwing a discus or lifting a heavy weight. How is it possible for our hands to be so incredibly flexible? Well, it's all down to the extraordinary complexity of the bones, ligaments, nerves, and muscles that lie beneath the skin of our hands. There are, for example, 9 muscles alone controlling just one thumb. Some of these are anchored to bones within the hand, while others link to the arm.
The division of literary works into genres, or texts that deal with a particular subject, or a subject in a particular way, makes life easier for the person browsing in a bookshop. He or she can go directly to where their favorite kind of book is shelved, be it science fiction, gothic, romance, and so on. Many writers of genre fiction are immensely popular and successful, Stephen King and J.K. Rowling to name only two. But, for the most part, such writers aren't depicting the world we live in and are writing fantasies. However, some genre writers, particularly writers of detective and police fiction, are unhappy about being categorized in this way. Genre fiction, they say, has come to be seen as inferior to what is called mainstream or literary fiction. In other words, detective fiction isn't taken seriously as literature, and yet crime novels do deal with the raw stuff of everyday life. They are, in fact, closer to the harsh reality of the modern world than most mainstream fiction. Divided by but, the critics say, while they do deal with the usual stuff of novels, character, emotion, psychology, social comment, and so on, it seldom goes very deep, and besides, most detective fiction, like certain mass-produced romantic novels, though not to anywhere near the same extent, follow a formula.
Surfing has been a central part of Hawaiian culture for hundreds of years, but surfing wasn't just a pastime for the Hawaiians in ancient times. It served as a kind of training exercise meant to keep chiefs in top physical condition. Chiefs demonstrated their mastery by their skill in the surf, and commoners gained popularity by the way they handled themselves in the ocean. As well as this, surfing served as a system for conflict resolution. Young males would test their surfing skills in fierce competitions, during which wealth, pride, and even romance
It's good to keep on your toes. Metaphorically, that is, not when you're actually out for a stroll. Because a new study Tempest suggests that it takes nearly twice as much energy to walk on your toes than it does to land on your heel. Humans are among a small handful of animals that tend to strut heel to toe. Chimps and other apes do it, as do bears. But most betters critters bounce on the balls of their feet, think cats and dogs, while others trot on their toes, like horses and deer. To find out whether our gait gives us any advantages, Biases scientists asked 27 volunteers to walk on a windchill treadmill all three ways: heel first, ball of the foot first, or up on tippy toes. The participants also wore face masks that enabled the researchers to measure their oxygen consumption. The results: the frolic subjects walking on the balls of their feet, in addition to looking ridiculous, expended 5% more energy. The ones prancing on their toes needed 83% more energy. The study is in the Journal of Experimental Biology. The bottom line: landing on our heels provides more leverage and limits energy losses to the ground, and does not look like a tribute to classic Monty Python.
Height is correlated with a lot of things. Up to a certain height, taller people make more money than the vertically challenged, and the taller presidential candidate almost always wins. Now a study finds that your height as an adult has a profound effect on your perception of your health. Short people judge their health to be worse than average, or tall people judge theirs. The research was published in the journal Clinical Endocrinology. Data for the study came from the 23 Health Survey for England. More than 14 participants filled out questionnaires and had their heights measured. The study only looked at how good the subject thought his or her health was, not their actual health. Questions focused on 5 areas: mobility, self-care, normal activities, pain or discomfort, and anxiety or depression. Men shorter than about 5'4" and women shorter than 5 reported the worst impressions, but small increases in height at the low end had much bigger effects on perception than the same increases among taller people. Other studies have shown, ironically, that shorter people on average actually live longer. A celebrated theory is still the source of a great controversy. The artists tied with the conservative politicians earned the roles of critics. A series of lectures showed us in economics have been recorded.